The fluorescent hum overhead was the soundtrack to my life. A relentless drone that had buzzed through 15 years of 12-hour shifts, coffee-stained charts, and the metallic tang of blood that never quite left your nostrils. St. Mary's Hospital in downtown Chicago wasn't glamorous. No glossy TV drama sets here, just peeling linoleum and vending machines that spat out lukewarm sodas like reluctant confessions. I was Asher Hale, 42, chief trauma surgeon, the guy who could intubate a crashing patient blindfolded while cracking a dad joke to keep the interns from puking. Reliable, steady, the rock. But rocks crack under pressure, don't they? Mine had been fracturing since med school. Back when I first realized the way my pulse quickened wasn't for the lithe co-eds in the lecture hall, but for the quiet boy in the back row sketching anatomy diagrams with hands that trembled like mine did now. His name was Ethan. God, even thinking it after all these years felt like swallowing glass. We met in gross anatomy, partners on a cadaver that smelled of formaldehyde and forgotten dreams. He had this laugh, low and rumbling, like distant thunder over Lake Michigan, that made the dissecting room feel less like a morgue and more like a secret garden. Late nights in the lab turned into stolen kisses in the supply closet, his fingers tracing the curve of my jaw while I whispered promises I couldn't keep. "We'll tell everyone after graduation," I'd say, my voice muffled against his neck. "This is just temporary." Temporary became permanent when my residency offer came from Johns Hopkins. A golden ticket to the East Coast that he couldn't follow. His family was old-school Polish Catholic, the kind that crossed themselves at the sight of rainbow flags. Mine? Evangelical holdouts from rural Indiana, where gay was a slur whispered behind barn doors. We wrote letters at first, pages filled with "I miss you" and "one day," but distance has a way of eroding even the strongest foundations. His last one arrived 6 months in. "I can't breathe without you, Ash. Come back or let me go." I burned it. Not literally, I'm no monster, but in the incinerator of my ambition, where dreams of white coats and tenure drowned out the ache. I chose the closet, bolted the door, and threw away the key. 15 years later, I was still in there, suturing lacerations and delivering bad news with the same detached precision. My personal life a blank chart no one bothered to fill. Until Julian Reyes walked into St. Mary's like a storm front rolling off the lake. It was a Tuesday in late October, the kind of gray Chicago day where the wind whips off the water and slaps you awake. I just wrapped a multi-car pileup on the Dan Ryan. 3 DOAs, 2 in surgery, the usual symphony of grief, when HR paged me to the conference room. "New attending," they said. "You'll be orienting him." I pushed through the door expecting another cookie-cutter resident. Eager, green, probably fresh out of some Ivy League bubble. Instead, there he was, mid-30s, olive skin glowing under the harsh lights, dark hair cropped close like he was military before med school. His eyes, though hazel flecked with gold, hit me like a defibrillator paddle. Sharp, assessing, the kind that saw straight through your scrubs to the scars beneath. "Dr. Hale," he said, extending a hand that was steady but calloused, like he'd earned those lines in places beyond textbooks. "Julian Reyes. Pleasure." His grip lingered a beat too long, or maybe that was my imagination, starved as it was. "Asher," I replied, pulling back too quickly. "Welcome to the madhouse. You transfer from County General in L.A., he said, flashing a smile that crinkled the corners of his eyes. "Heard Chicago winters build character." We both chuckled, the easy banter of colleagues masking the undercurrent I felt humming between us. Over the next week, I showed him the ropes. How to navigate the HR system that crashed more than it ran, the best tie spot for post-shift foe, the unspoken hierarchy where nurses ruled and admins were to be avoided like MRSA. Julian was a natural, quick with a diagnosis, gentle with patients, the kind of doctor who remembered names and asked about grandkids. But it was the quiet moments that undid me. Him leaning against the nurse's station at 3 a.m., sleeves rolled up to reveal forearms dusted with dark hair, sharing a protein bar and stories of growing up queer in East LA, where pride parades were as common as smog alerts. "You're out?" I asked one night, the words slipping out before I could cage them. We were in the break room, microwaving leftover lasagna, the TV droning CNN in the background. He shrugged, popping open a soda. Since I was 16. Mom's a Chicana firebrand. Marched with ACT up in the 80s. Dad, well, he came around after I saved his ass from a diabetic coma. His laugh was self-deprecating, but there was steel in it. You? My throat tightened, the lie automatic. Not really my story to tell. I busied myself with my plate, heart pounding like I just run a code. He didn't push, just nodded with that knowing tilt of his head. Fair enough. But if you ever want to grab a beer off campus, no shop talk. Just guys being guys. The invitation hung there, innocent on the surface, but loaded like a trauma bay gurney. I mumbled something about schedules and escaped to rounds, my pulse a traitor thumping in my ears. Weeks blurred into the relentless ER rhythm. Gunshot wounds from Southside beefs, overdoses in Wicker Park alleys, heart attacks in the Gold Coast high-rises. Julian fit seamlessly, his calm under fire earning him nods from the old guard, whispers from the nurses about how he got it. Whatever it was. I watched him from afar at first, stealing glances over clipboards, telling myself it was professional curiosity. But curiosity has a way of blooming into something dangerous. It started small. A brush of shoulders in the crowded hallway, his hand steadying mine during a messy central line. Then, one brutal shift after a mass casualty from a loop train derailment. We collapsed into the on-call room, bone-tired and reeking of betadine. The room was a closet, bunk beds, a sagging couch, the faint must of too many sleepless souls. He kicked off his shoes, stretched out on the lower bunk, and patted the space beside him. "Rough one," he murmured, eyes half-lidded. "You ever wonder why we do this? Patch him up just to send him back into the fray." I sank down next to him, the mattress dipping under our weight, our thighs inches apart. The air was thick, charged. "Beats the alternative," I said, voice rough. "At least here we make a difference." He turned his head, those hazel eyes searching mine in the dim glow of the desk lamp. "You make a difference, Asher. More than you know." His fingers grazed my wrist, accidental or not, and fire licked up my arm. I froze, every nerve screaming run while my body betrayed me. Leaning in, our breaths mingled, coffee and mint, and for a heartbeat, I saw it. The possibility of bridges unburned, letters unsent. Then the pager shrieked, "Stat to Bay 3," and the moment shattered like cheap glass. We bolted upright, the spell broken, but the echo lingered, a ghost in my chest. I told myself it was nothing, colleague camaraderie, exhaustion playing tricks. But deep down, in the vault where I'd entombed Ethan, I knew better. Julian wasn't just a storm. He was the key rattling in that long-forgotten lock. And locks, once tested, have a way of giving way. The first crack came during a quiet lull, the kind that fools you into thinking the night's tame. I ducked into my locker for a fresh pair of socks, feet perpetually damp in these clogs, when I spotted it. An envelope, yellowed and creased, wedged behind a stack of old journals. My name scrawled in Ethan's looping script, postmark from 12 years ago. How the hell? I'd cleared this locker when I transferred from PEDS, scrubbed it clean like a surgical field. Heart slamming, I tore it open, the paper whispering secrets I'd buried alive. "Asher, if you're reading this, I lost the fight. Not to you or the miles, but to the silence. I drove out to the point last night, watched the waves crash like they did that summer we stole away to Saugatuck. Remember? You said we'd build a life there, away from the noise. I believed you. God, I believed. But belief isn't enough when you're screaming into a void. The doctors say depression, but it's heartbreak, pure and simple. I can't keep pretending I'm whole without you. If there's any mercy left in that surgeon's heart of yours, come find me. Or burn this. Just don't forget. Forever yours, Ethan." The words blurred, hot tears scorching my cheeks. He'd died 6 months after writing it. Overdose, they ruled, but I knew better. A final exhale after I'd snuffed his light. I'd heard through the grapevine years later, mourned in private, then shoved it down with the rest. How had this survived? A cruel joke from the universe, or fate's middle finger? Footsteps echoed in the hall. Panic surged. I shoved the letter into my pocket, slamming the locker just as Julian rounded the corner, chart in hand. "You okay?" he asked, brow furrowing. "Look like you've seen a ghost." I forced a nod, throat raw. "Just old paperwork. What's up?" He held out the chart, but his eyes lingered, probing. "Mrs. Kowalski's crashing again. Need a second set of hands." We moved as one, falling into rhythm. Me leading the rhesus, him anticipating every call like we'd shared a pulse. But as I barked orders, the letter burned against my thigh, a brand reminding me of all I'd sacrificed for this life. The white coat, the respect, the illusion of control. That night, after sign-out, I sat in my car in the parking garage, engine idling, the city lights smearing like accusations on the windshield. I pulled out the letter, reread it under the dome light, each word a fresh wound. Ethan had waited. I'd let him fade. My phone buzzed. "Julian. Beer? My treat. You owe me after that save." Fingers hovering, I typed rain check and hit send before regret could claw it back. Then, on impulse, I Googled the obituary I'd avoided for over a decade. There he was, Ethan Michael Walsh, 1982 to 2011. Beloved son, artist, gone too soon. The garage spun, grief crashing over me like a code brown. I hadn't cried since his funeral, no, since before, when denial was easier than eulogies. But now, with Julian's text glowing like a lifeline, the dam broke. Sobs racked me, ugly and unrestrained, until headlights swept past, jolting me upright. Wiping my face, I drove home to my empty Lincoln Park brownstone. The letter clutched like a talisman. Sleep was a lost cause. Instead, I paced the creaky floors, memories flooding back. Ethan's head on my chest after a brutal exam week, his fingers sketching lazy hearts on my skin. "This is us," he'd murmur. "Against the world." I believed it then. What if I believed it now? Morning came gray and unforgiving, coffee bitter on my tongue. Shift started with a bang. A ped hit and run, tiny body mangled on the stretcher, and Julian was there, gloved and ready, his presence a bomb and a blade. We worked in sync, stabilizing the kid for CT, but midway through, our eyes met over the monitor. "Thanks for last night," he said quietly, as the team cleared out. "The rain check, whenever." I swallowed hard, the letter's weight in my locker a siren call. "Actually, tonight, pick you up at 8. His smile was sunrise after storm. "It's a date." The word hung electric. Date. Not beer. Not colleagues. And just like that, the closet door creaked open, 15 years of shadows spilling into the light. But light reveals cracks, and mine were spiderwebbing fast. 8 o'clock sharp, I pulled up to Julian's walk-up in Andersonville, the kind of neighborhood where rainbow crosswalks clashed with hipster coffee shops and you could smell pierogies frying from blocks away. My hands gripped the wheel, slick with nerves, the letter tucked in my glove box like contraband. What was I doing? A lifetime of caution, and now this, picking up a man for drinks, heart hammering like a first-year intern on call. He slid into the passenger seat, fresh from a shower, smelling of cedar and soap, jeans hugging his legs in a way that made my mouth dry. "Nice ride," he said, buckling in. "Didn't peg you for a BMW guy." "Guilty pleasure," I muttered, easing into traffic. After 15 years of callroom couches, you take the wins where you can. We hit a dive called the Rusty Anchor, tucked off Halstead, all exposed brick and craft IPAs that tasted like regret and hops. The place was half empty, a mix of after-work suits and couples murmuring in booths, the jukebox crooning Springsteen like it knew my sins. We claimed a corner table, knees brushing under the scarred wood, and ordered whiskey neat for me, a lager for him. "So," Julian started, clinking glasses. "Tell me something true. Not hospital true. Real true." The question landed like a chest tube, piercing straight to the marrow. I sipped, the burn steadying me. I grew up in a town so small, the biggest scandal was the Lutheran pastor running off with the choir director. Both men. My dad called it the devil's work from the pulpit. He winced, but his eyes held steady. "Ouch. And you? Caught in the crossfire." I nodded, staring into the amber swirl. Kinda. I bolted for college, buried myself in books. Med school was escape velocity. Pause heavy as lead. You said your mom was cool.
Lucky.
She's a force, he agreed, leaning in, voice dropping. Taught me to fight pretty early. Got jumped in high school, wrong pants on Spirit Day, and she drove me to the ER herself, then back to school the next week with a baseball bat in the trunk. No one's dimming your light, Mijo. I laughed, genuine and rusty, the sound surprising me. Wish I'd had that. Instead, I learned to hide. Lights out, metaphorically. His foot nudged mine under the table. Not accidental, a deliberate press that sent sparks up my spine. Hiding safe until it's not. You strike me as a guy who's tired of safe. The air thickened, charged with unspoken invitations. I met his gaze, those hazel depths pulling me under. Maybe I am. We talked for hours. Medicine bleeding into life, stories of lost patients mirroring lost loves. He confessed a bad breakup last year, a boyfriend who bailed when the hours got brutal. Our life's a jealous mistress, he said wryly. But worth it, right? Worth everything? I echoed, meaning it more than he knew. By last call, the bar's hum faded to a buzz in my ears, and when he suggested a walk, just to clear the head, I didn't hesitate. Andersonville at night was alive in whispers. Couples hand in hand under street lamps, laughter spilling from jazz joints, the L rumbling overhead like a mechanical heartbeat. We strolled aimlessly, shoulders brushing, the chill nipping at our collars. At a quiet corner by a mural of Stonewall rioters, fists raised, faces fierce, Julian stopped, turning to me with that surgeon's precision. Asher, he said softly, breath fogging the air. This okay? His hand found mine, fingers lacing tentative but sure. The world narrowed to that touch, warm, real. A lifeline tossed across chasms I dug myself. I squeezed back, throat tight. More than. We kissed there, under the gaze of painted revolutionaries. His lips soft and insistent, tasting of lager and hope. It wasn't fireworks. It was a slow thaw, ice cracking after a brutal winter. My hands cupped his face, thumbs tracing the stubble I'd admired from afar. And for the first time in years, I breathed without armor. We broke apart gasping, foreheads pressed, grins stupid and shared. Your place or mine? He murmured, half joking, but the heat in his eyes said otherwise. Mine, I whispered, the decision seismic. As we piled into the car, city lights streaking past, the glove box's secret gnawed at me. Not tonight. Tonight was resurrection. My brownstone loomed welcoming, all Victorian bones and bay windows overlooking the park. I fumbled keys, his chuckle warm against my neck as he followed me up the stoop. Inside, it was sparse, leather couch, bookshelves groaning with medical tomes and dog-eared Vonnegut's. A kitchen where takeout containers outnumbered pots. He wandered, fingering spines, while I poured wine from a bottle I'd saved for. Well, this. To new chapters, he toasted, settling beside me on the couch, thigh flush against mine. We clinked, sipped, and the night unfolded lazy. Talk turning to touches, kisses deepening until we were tangled, shirts discarded in a heap. It stayed tender, boundaries unspoken but honored. Hands exploring with reverence, not rush. No frenzy, just the quiet miracle of two men reclaiming space in a world that often denied it. Afterward, curled against him, his heartbeat a steady drum under my palm, I felt something shift, a loosening in my chest, like stitches dissolving. You're full of surprises, Dr. Hale, he murmured into my hair, voice sleepy. Good ones, I hope. The best. His arm tightened, possessive and gentle. Stay like this. Try and stop me. Dawn crept in gray, coffee brewing as we shared the Sunday paper. Him crosswords, me obituaries out of habit. Felt domestic, dangerously normal. But as he dressed for his shift, I caught sight of the glove box through the open car door later that day, the letter's edge peeking like a guilty conscience. I had to tell him. Not everything, not yet, but enough to bridge the gap between my past and this fragile now. Shift that evening was mercifully slow, a dribble of flu cases and sprains. In the break room over vending machine chips, I broached it haltingly. Last night meant something. A lot. He grinned, popping a Dorito. Mutual. But I'm complicated. Baggage from way back. I hesitated, the words leaden. Someone I loved. Lost him to my cowardice. Julian's expression softened. No judgment. Just listening. We all got ghosts, Asher. Doesn't make you less. Relief flooded me, warm as his hand on my knee under the table. You're right. Just give me time to exorcise a few. Take all you need. He leaned in, quick kiss stealing my breath. I'm not going anywhere. Famous last words. The betrayal slithered in subtle, like sepsis masking as flu. It started with Dr. Harlan Graves, my attending from residency, now hospital COO, a silver fox with a scalpel tongue and a homophobia so casual it passed for wit. He'd cornered me in the hall that week, clipboard in hand. Hail rumors from the floor. You and the new guy? Keep it professional. This ain't Fire Island. Ice water in my veins. Nothing to report, Harlan. He smirked, clapping my shoulder too hard. Good man. Wouldn't want your stellar record tarnished. I brushed it off, but the seed rooted. Whispers followed. Nurses averting eyes, interns snickering over charts. Julian noticed too, his jaw tightening during rounds. They're talking, he said one night post-shift in my car. About us. Let them. We're adults. Easier said. His sigh was heavy. In LA it was out and proud. Here? Feels like don't ask. Don't intubate. The pressure built, a subdural hematoma swelling unseen. I doubled down on work, volunteering for extra shifts, avoiding the break room gossip. But the letter haunted me, a talisman I carried now, folded in my wallet. Ethan's words fueled late-night confessions to Julian. Halting tales of stolen summers, the burn of that final silence. He sounds incredible, Julian said one evening. Us sprawled on my couch, takeout cooling forgotten. You loved fierce. Still do. The admission slipped. Raw. Just learned to bury it. He traced my knuckles, eyes fierce. Dig it up, Asher. For us. The word was oxygen, but oxygen feeds fires. The spark ignited 2 weeks later, during a department meeting in the auditorium stuffy room, PowerPoint droning about budget cuts. Harlan was at the podium, his gaze lingering on me and Julian, seated side by side in the back row. As the lights dimmed for Q&A, my pager vibrated. Unknown sender. Check your email. Now. Heart stuttering, I slipped my phone under the desk. The message was anonymous. Subject, truth serum. Attached, a photo, grainy but unmistakable. Me and Julian outside the rusty anchor, hands linked, mid-kiss under the street lamp. Below it, a scan of Ethan's letter, words stark. I waited for you, Asher. Don't let fear bury us both. Nausea roiled. How? My wallet, left in the locker room during a code, unattended for minutes. Someone had rifled it, photographed, sent this poison. The email continued. 15 years hiding. Dr. Hale? How many lives lost to your secrets? Board knows. Tick-tock. Panic clawed my throat. The meeting blurred. Harlan's voice a distant buzz. As I gripped Julian's hand under the seat, his squeeze the only anchor. But anchors drag when storms hit. We fled to the parking lot post-meeting, my hands shaking as I showed him the screen. His face drained of color. Jesus, Asher. Who? Harlan. Or someone in his pocket. Rage boiled, hot and helpless. This ends now. But ending it meant unraveling everything. That night, alone in my brownstone, I drafted the email to HR. Full disclosure, coming out on my terms. Fingers hovered over send. Ethan's ghost whispering now or never. I hit it. The die cast. Morning brought the deluge. My inbox flooded. Support from allies, stony silences from others. Harlan called me in, face thunderous. Bold move, Hale. But that letter? Defamation. You're suspended pending review. Suspended. Julian stormed in behind me, uninvited firebrand. For loving who I love? This is 2025, not the Stonewall Dark Ages. Harlan's lip curled. Personal lives don't bleed into professional. Not here. The fight spilled into the hall, voices rising, nurses clustering like storm clouds. By noon, the whole floor knew. The chief who'd hidden for decades, outed by a ghost's ink. Julian found me in the chapel, a dim nook of stained glass and silence. We fight this, he said, pulling me into his arms. Together, but togetherness frays under fire. That afternoon, as picket signs sprouted outside, nurses, patients, even a local news van, the betrayal deepened. My phone rang. An unknown number. Asher? This Mark from PEDS. Remember me? Your intern from '05. Vague recognition. Yeah. Harlan showed me the email. The letter. Said you drove that guy to it.
Éthanès suicide.
Board members pulling strings. You're done. The world tilted. Mark. Our Mark. The one who'd walked in on Ethan and me once. Laughed it off. Then ghosted when I transferred. Harlan's pawn. Twisting my grief into a noose. Betrayed by history itself. Suspension hit like a sucker punch to the gut. Sudden, disorienting, leaving you gasping on the canvas. One day I'm elbow deep in a thoracotomy. The next I'm pacing my brownstone in sweatpants. The silence louder than any ER cacophony. St. Mary's loomed in my mind's eye. A colossus I'd built brick by bloody brick. Now crumbling under the weight of one faded envelope. HR's letter was clinical. Administrative leave, pending investigation into conduct and morale impact. Morale impact. Code for you're scaring the straights. Julian was my lifeline, showing up that first night with tamales from his mom's recipe and a bottle of mezcal that burned going down. We sat on the floor, backs against the couch. The city humming beyond the windows like indifferent applause. This is bullshit, he growled, passing the bottle. Harlan's playing God, and you're the sacrifice. I took a swig, the smoke curling in my chest. Maybe I am. 15 years, Jewel. I earned this coat, but at what cost? His hand found my knee, grounding. Cost Ethan's paid already. Don't add yourself to the tab. We made love that night. Slow, deliberate, a reclamation amid the ruins. His body over mine, urgent yet tender, mapping scars both seen and unseen. Afterward, tangled in sheets that smelled of us, he whispered plans. Lawyers, protests, leaning on the LGBTQ caucus at the AMA. We're not quitting, he vowed, fingers tracing my collarbone. Not you, not us. His faith was a buoy, but buoys bob in treacherous waters. The days blurred into a haze of appeals and interviews, local news sniffing for scandal, painting me as the tortured closet case, Julian as the homewrecker catalyst. Online, it exploded. Threads on Reddits are /medicine dissecting my instability. Posts from alums calling for my license. Hidden for a reason, one read. How many patients suffered his distraction? The betrayal festered. Mark's call replaying like a bad loop. I tracked him down. Old colleague, now a radiologist in Milwaukee, living the quiet life with a wife and twins. Our coffee meet at a neutral Starbucks was awkward. Styrofoam cups steaming between us like unspoken accusations. You told Harlan about Ethan, I said flatly, no preamble. Twisted it into ammo. He shifted, eyes darting to the door. He cornered me, Ash. Showed the letter, the photo. Said it proved negligence, your head not in the game back then. I covered for you once, remember? That misplaced chart. I did Ethan's post-it note in the wrong file. A love note disguised as a reminder. Mark had filed it away, winked. So this is payback? Survival. He leaned in, voice low. Harlan's got the board's ear. Old money, old prejudices. He's gunning for you to make an example. Protect the institution. He calls it. Rage simmered, but under it, pity. Mark was as trapped as I'd been. Complicit in the machine that chewed up queers and spat out husks. And you? Sleep okay selling out a friend. He flinched, but his jaw set. Friends don't drag you into their mess. Ethan's death. It hung over us all. You were different after. Distant. We wondered. Wondered. My laugh was bitter. You mean gossiped, while I grieved alone. He stood, tossing napkins on the table. Fix this your way, Asher. But Harlan's not bluffing. Resign. Quietly. I watched him go, the bell tinkling like a death knell. Back home, I pulled out the letter, smoothing its creases on the kitchen table. Ethan's script danced under my fingers. Don't let fear bury us both. Bury. The word mocked me. I'd buried him, buried me, and now the hospital, my makeshift family, was wielding the shovel. Julian arrived late, shift-worn and furious. Heard from Ramirez, Harlan's freezing my evals too. Guilt by association. The injustice ignited us. We rallied. Calls to allies, petitions circulating among staff. A young PA, Mia, started a Slack channel, Solidarity for Hale, where nurses vented and residents pledged support. Even patients chimed in, emails flooding my inbox. You saved my daughter. Who you love doesn't change that. But momentum builds slow in bureaucracies, and Harlan struck first. A week in, the Chicago Tribune dropped a hit piece. St. Mary's surgeon outed amid scandal. Questions of professionalism and past trauma. It quoted anonymous sources. Harlan's fingerprints all over, linking my personal turmoil to a string of old cases, implying Ethan's shadow had compromised my scalpel. Julian read it aloud over breakfast, voice shaking. This is libel. We sue. And drag Ethan's name through more mud? I pushed my eggs away, appetite soured. No, I face it. Facing it meant digging deeper, confronting the vault I'd sealed. I drove to Evanston that afternoon, to the cemetery where Ethan rested under a modest stone. Artist. Dreamer. Forever missed. The wind off the lake whipped leaves like accusations as I knelt, tracing his name. I should have come back, I whispered to the granite. Should have fought. A rustle. An older woman, bundled in wool, placing lilies nearby. You knew my boy? Ethan's mom, Agnes. Time had silvered her hair, etched lines around eyes still sharp as her son's sketches. I stood, fumbling. Asher. From college. Recognition dawned, soft and sorrowful. The doctor. He spoke of you, painted you even. She pulled a photo from her purse. Faded Polaroid of a canvas. My profile, fierce and tender, against a stormy shore. Tears pricked. I'm so sorry. She touched my arm, grip firm. Grief's a thief, steals the words we need. But Ethan's peace? He found it in the end. Said you taught him to love without apology. We talked for an hour, her stories of his art shows, his quiet activism, the void after. No blame, just shared ache. As she left, she pressed the photo into my hand. Live it for him, Asher. The love he saw in you. The drive back was cathartic, windows down, wind scouring clean. I texted Julian, meet me at the hospital. It's time. We stormed HR together that evening. Unannounced, the photo and letter in my fist like evidence. Carla, the director, a no-nonsense black woman who'd mentored me through residency, looked up, eyebrows arched.
Dramatik entrance, Hale.
I laid it out. The anonymous email, Harlan's threats, Mark's complicity. This isn't investigation. It's witch hunt. I'm out, proud. And if that costs my job, so be it. But bury me honest. Julian flanked me, hand on my back. We're both all in. Punish one, you lose us both. Carla's gaze flicked between us, weighing. Harlan's got pull, but so do I. Sit tight. I'll dig. We emerged into the lobby. The ER's pulse thrummed beyond the doors. A symphony of beeps and shouts that called me home. What now? Julian asked, pulling me into a hug amid the bustle. Now? We wait. And we love. I kissed him, bold under the atrium lights, ignoring the stares. Let them see. Let them talk. But waiting breeds doubt, and doubt festers into fear. That night, alone while Julian pulled a double, the phone rang, Harlan's private line. Hale, he drawled, voice oily. Noble stunt. But the boards reviewed your file. That letter is a liability. Resign by morning, or we go public with the details. Ethan's family might not appreciate the spotlight. Ice in my veins.
Blackmail. Pure.
You touch his name and You'll what?
Sue.
You're suspended, remember? A chuckle cold. Clock's ticking. I hung up, slamming the phone down, chest heaving. The letter, my anchor, now a chain. Betrayal layered on betrayal. Harlan twisting my grief into leverage. Mark feeding the beast. Even the hospital itself. A place I'd bled for. Turning feral. Julian came home at dawn. Found me on the balcony. Staring at the awakening city. What's wrong? I handed him the printout of Harlan's call log. Traced it, old habits. He's ending this ugly. His face hardened, that LA fire sparking. Then we end it uglier. Rally the troops. Protest tomorrow. By noon, the picket line swelled. Mia with megaphone. Ramirez with signs. Love heals. Bigots bleed. Even Agnes showing up with a placard. For Ethan, for Asher. News vans swarmed. The story flipping from scandal to standoff. Julian and I stood front and center. Hands clasped. His warmth stealing my spine as chants rose. Justice for Hale. Harlan watched from his office window. A king on his parapet. But his kingdom cracked. Carla emerged mid-afternoon. Mic in hand. Addressing the crowd. St. Mary's stands for healing all. Dr. Hale returns Monday. Full back pay. And Dr. Graves? Resignation effective immediately. Cheers erupted. A tidal wave crashing over us. Hugs. Backslaps. Tears. Julian's arms around me, the center of the storm. We did it. He breathed, lips brushing my ear. Not we. You. I pulled back, eyes locked. You saw me. All of me. His grin was wicked, victorious. Damn right. Now, about that date I owe you. But victory's afterglow fades fast, and shadows lingered. That evening, as we celebrated at a dive with the crew, beers flowing, toasts to resilience. A call came. Unknown number again.
Asher Hale.
Who's this? Detective Ruiz, Chicago PD. Regarding Ethan Walsh. New evidence in the case. Your name's on it. We need to talk. The pub noise dulled to a roar in my ears. New evidence? After 14 years? The letter, the photo, flashed. Had Harlan weaponized it further, painting me as suspect? Julian's hand on my arm. What? I met his eyes, the high crashing into abyss. Trouble. Big trouble. The climax wasn't a scalpel slip or a flatline beep. It was this. The past clawing back, not as ghost, but as handcuffs. The detective's office smelled of stale coffee and printer toner. A far cry from the antiseptic bite of the ER. Ruiz was compact. No-nonsense Latina with a badge polished to a gleam in eyes that missed nothing. She slid a file across the scarred desk, its label screaming Walsh E. Reopened 2025. Suicide ruling stood for years, she said, voice even. But a tip came in, anonymous, flagged high priority. Led us to this. She tapped a bagged envelope. My handwriting, unmistakable, postmark from 2011.
Ethan. I'm sorry.
I can't. Please understand. My stomach plummeted. I'd written it after his plea, mailed it in a fit of cowardice, then regretted it enough to block his number. How had it resurfaced? Harlan had to be the bastard's final twist, framing my heartbreak as malice. Ruiz leaned forward. Note like that from the ex? Looks bad. Assisted? Coerced?
No.
The denial burst. Raw. I loved him. Ended it to protect us both. Julian's grip on my hand under the table anchored me. His thumb stroking circles like a silent code. Breathe. She nodded, jotting notes. We exhumed, standard for reopen. Talk screens clean, no foul play markers. But the letter? Motive if you squint. And this. Another photo. Ethan's apartment, door ajar. My note on the table beside an empty pill bottle. Air thinned. I never went there. Never saw him after. Alibi? Shift logs. Hopkins residency, verifiable. Julian squeezed harder, his presence a shield. Ruiz closed the file, sighing. Tips bogus, smells like sabotage. But protocol's protocol. We'll clear you, Dr. Hale. Just watch your back. Outside, in the precinct's fluorescent chill, Julian pulled me into the stairwell, away from prying eyes. Harlan, he growled. That son of a bitch. Proof. My voice cracked, the weight crushing. I'll get it. His kiss was fierce. A vow. We're ending this. Ending it meant war. We looped in Carla. She'd clawed her way up, knew the dirt. Over encrypted email, she confirmed Harlan's access to archives, his grudge from a botched case years back where I'd called out his bias. He's unraveling, she wrote. Board's watching. Push. Push we did. I filed the complaint, harassment, defamation, the works, CCING, the State Medical Board. Julian rallied the floor. Depositions from staff on Harlan's jokes. Logs of his overrides on my cases. Agnes contributed too, her statement a dagger. Asher mourned my son privately, with dignity. Accuse him, you accuse Ethan's memory. The climax crested midweek. Harlan summoned to a hearing in the hospital's boardroom. Mahogany table, suits starched, the air thick with AC and anticipation. I sat front row, Julian beside me, our knees touching like talismans. Harlan entered, tie askew, eyes darting like a cornered rat. The chairwoman, Dr. Ellis, steel-haired veteran with a rep for fairness, opened. Dr. Graves, allegations of misconduct. Evidence? He blustered, pointing at me. Hale's instability threatened the unit. The letter proves it, emotional volatility. Stolen, I interjected, voice steady. Planted to discredit. Gasps rippled. Carla projected the chain. Locker breach on security cam, grainy, but Harlan's build unmistakable. Anonymous tip traced to a burner bought blocks away. And the PD call? She added. Dismissed. False report. Harlan deflated. Sweat beading. This is a witch hunt. Protecting. That lifestyle. Enough. Ellis's gavel cracked like thunder. Resignation or charges. Clear. He slunk out minutes later, tail between legs, the board's vote unanimous. Me reinstated, with apologies and a task force on inclusivity. The ER erupted when I walked in Monday. Cheers, hugs, a banner strung over the bays. Welcome home, Doc Hale. Ramirez pressed a coffee into my hand. Mia snapped a selfie. Even the janitor, old Mr. Kowalski, clapped my back. About time we had some real heart here. Julian lingered by the desk, chart in hand, his smile private fire. Told you. Unbreakable. We worked side by side that shift, the rhythm familiar yet renewed. Him calling vents, me closing wounds, our glances loaded with later. No drama, just the quiet heroism of showing up. But humanism isn't Hollywood bows. It's the messy grace of scars. That night, over dinner at my place. Steak seared rare, wine decanted, Julian broached the future. What now? For us? I set down my fork, heart full. Everything. Dates. Vacations. Maybe that life Ethan dreamed. Saquatuck summers, no hiding. His eyes glistened. And the hospital? Changed it. For the next ones. I took his hand, the photo from Agnes on the mantel catching the light. My younger self painted fierce. We change it. Months folded forward, steady as sutures healing. Harlan faded to a cautionary tale, the task force blooming into policy. Ally training, pride flags in lobbies. Julian and I built slow. Weekends antiquing in Oak Park, nights debating Foucault over bourbon. His head on my chest as Lake Michigan whispered beyond the blinds. One crisp November dawn, a year to the letter's unearthing, we drove to Ethan's grave. Snow dusted the stones, the lake a steel mirror. I laid the original letter atop the plot, weighted with a stone. Forgiven, I murmured to the wind. Julian's arm around me. He knew, always. We stood there, two men against the chill, love a quiet revolution. Not perfect, No tidy epilogue, but human. Flawed, fierce, forward. Back home, as sirens wailed distant, I pulled Julian close, our breaths sinking like monitors in tandem. 15 years buried, but from ashes, bloom. The ER called stat always, but for once I answered unarmored.